There we go.
Okay, everyone, we're now live. You may start the meeting.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chair Barry Bialik, and I would like to welcome you to the September 2, 2021 Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting. All committee members and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we work through committee meetings a bit differently. We're streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. We also have an option for the public to listen and comment live by phone. Please dial 855-925-2801 and use meeting code 7663 to listen in. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. I'll now go through and introduce all the committee members who are participating virtually. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. When you have a question or would like to speak, unmute your microphone. Please remember to mute your phone, option *6 after you're done speaking. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Okay. Yeah, I'm here, Scott Adams.
Hi, I'm Scott Adams, Urban Planner with Land of Sky Regional Council.
Paul Heathman. Paul Heathman, I saw you out there. You can skip him and come back. Joe.
Good morning, everyone.
Margie.
Margie Bukowski, Weaver Cook Construction Company. Good morning.
Chris.
Good morning, Chris Day, Civil Design Concepts.
Andy.
Good morning. This is Andy Barnett with Asheville Area Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, let me see. Who's the list of? I can't see the 7 others. Who else? I haven't seen. Is Dewana here? Or Zakia? Or Brian? Amber? No, Babs is not here. And then Paul Heathman, are you still with us? Oh, we'll come back. And then I see, welcome to Councilwoman Mosley. I see she just joined us as well. Okay. So I think, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? So we, do have a quorum. And if Paul, whenever Paul joins us, he can say hello. All right, I'm gonna hop on to our agenda here. So we did not have a meeting in August. It was postponed. So first we have approval of the July minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yep.
Okay. Have a motion. Can I have a motion to approve them, please?
I'll motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussions? Okay, we'll do a quick raise of hands just to approve the minutes. Okay, minutes from the July meeting have been approved. Next, we'll go to our community development updates. So these are the updates from the August meeting for HCD. Any questions we want to discuss to go over them? I did not see, no, I did not. I don't think I saw new, are there any new Housing Trust Fund or Luigi applications, Paul, that aren't on here?
I don't think so, no, and nothing on today's agenda for that.
Okay.
We are, Barry, waiting on guidance from city management about bringing those to AHAC, and I just have not heard back from city management on that, Barry.
Okay. Who should we, I guess if we need to have the outside discussions on it, who should we be talking with?
I think that would be Kathy Ball.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that because I did notice, I think it was helpful. I think we discussed our last meeting, the last time we discussed, and there was a application for Luigi in front of us, and we talked about unit mix, and it was, they did adjust it for HCD, and then it was approved kind of without much discussion. So I think there's value we can show we do bring to this. Any other specific things on community development updates we should go through, or any questions on? Margie?
Paul, can you give us any kind of an update? I know there were some meetings in August on 319 Biltmore. Can you give us any kind of a update that's more recent than what was in HCD?
Sure. I believe that for right now, I believe there's going to be some conversations with city management and city council members at council check-ins about what the next steps look like on 319 Biltmore.
So that would take place in September?
Council check-ins are usually the Thursday before city council meetings. I don't know if that'll be in the next couple of weeks or the last meeting in September, but I do believe sometime this month.
Okay.
City management will be checking in with council about 319 and next steps.
Hey, Barry, I'd like to jump in for just a second to announce to the group that Homeward Bound was able to close on the Days Inn property on Tuesday. And having worked very closely, I'm on the board for Homeward Bound, and I'm also the chair of the committee for this project. And just thank you so much to Paul and to the city, to council as well, for your generosity and your assistance, for everything that it took to put it together and for us to get to the closing table. And we're just thrilled. We're so excited that we can now move on the renovations and just advance the project to where it needs to be, to help our clients and to just help the overall situation with those experiencing homelessness in Asheville.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to have some good news. Let's see. I know I checked in with Anna from the Land Trust just to see if those lots had closed on yet, and I hear there's a delay on the closing. Do we know anything about that, Paul? The individual lots that Land Trust was getting from the city lots, do you know?
I do not know. I don't think there's anything heavy there at all. I do know that we're trying to work through their HUD funding, as they have home funding and CDBG funding that kind of go hand in hand.
Okay.
But that home money is going to come a bit later, but I don't think that's affecting the closing.
Okay.
So unknown, but I think all is well there to eventually get moving. I think that also has to do with the CLT's timeline of how they're working. So it should be all good. Okay,
cool. And then was the trust fund money returned from the Juno Group project?
That is correct.
Okay. And then what's up with Pine View?
Pine View is trying to figure out a plan B, and they want to come back to HCD, I believe, in October to try to see if they can pivot to another site for home ownership. As everybody on this call, I'm sure, is aware, the costs are of everything across the board is making construction pricing difficult and making home ownership pricing difficult. So they're trying to pivot to another site. I believe they want to come back to HCD in October, and then maybe they can come through here as well, Barry, once we get some direction.
Okay, cool. So if it's the way that process works, can an allocation be moved from property to property, or does it have to come is it like a reapply?
We would need a new application from them just to shift it.
Okay, got it.
And I believe they're working on that now, but same amount of money. I think actually the same amount of units as well.
Okay, cool.
What about Kirk? I'm assuming this is Kirk Booth, Bocatcher Vista? The $1 million there, is that Kirk?
That's correct, yes.
So that's not Restaurant Court, that's the other projects?
I think the one that's on there has to do with restaurant court, that
That is restaurant court.
there's anticipation that Kirk will come back through for additional housing trust fund dollars for that project, but we have not seen that yet.
Okay. So that one application that we saw, it's been pulled from HCD for the time. Okay. Okay. Any?
I think that theme continues, Barry, with cost is becoming a struggle across the board.
Okay. Anything with the purpose-built and deed review?
Those conversations are still on hold as we try to work out what an agreement looks like with the housing authority on that potential 60-acre redevelopment. And I believe that the management is working on that agreement. And I think the agreement just went back to HACA earlier this week. So more to come, but right now that's all on hold.
Okay. I did hear also that David Nash is back at work, part-time. So he's doing good. I know he had a health scare. But I heard he is back at the office, which is good. I think any other DPA, down payment assistance. Is that RFP is that out and circulating?
Almost.
Do you have a date for when it might actually get out there?
I have to run it by one more group internally. So hopefully with our HUD schedule, I would think by September 7th, that Friday, September 17th.
Okay.
We are trying to do some outreach on that just to kind of see if there's some interest in the community and regional communities around down payment assistance, just to see what kind of anticipate possible responses. That is a concern that we only got 2 proposals last time, and we want to see if we can do some better groundwork there to see if we can possibly get more.
Okay. Cool. Andy, anything you want to share about Habitat projects?
Not really at this moment. We've got a lot of things in the works. They're going smoothly. We're managing higher costs like everyone else is. Looking at a couple of opportunities within the city of Asheville to exercise our right of first purchase to create have a longer term affordability, buying some houses back and reselling them to a second generation of owners. So that's an exciting thing. But not a whole lot to report. I do have a question for Paul, kind of generally on several of the topics here. What's the time frame for all of the bond funds to be dispersed? I know we've talked about sort of the bond clock. Where are we on that, and how is it looking to have that all dispersed by the time the end of that bond cycle ends?
About 2 years and 2 months we still have for the remaining bond fund. And Nikki and I have a meeting, I think, next week for the bond dashboard to do an update on that, to kind of get an exact. We're not worried about it because part of it is if you just kind of move, shift money on an accounting spreadsheet, kind of, sort of, it can look like it's moved and spent. But so far we've done pretty well with this funding. So we're not worried about the 2 years and 2 months remaining, but things have shifted with priorities. So that's been very interesting. Of what we had planned 6 months ago, we're trying to still shift. But otherwise, we'll have a bond update probably for October's meeting and maybe in time for HCD's meeting in a couple weeks.
But Paul, doesn't the project actually have to be started?
There's specific language, and I apologize, I don't want to repeat that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, if it's put in for affordable housing, as long as the money's moved over, it doesn't actually have to have physically moved dirt or something like that. But I can bring back that clarifying language.
Okay, that would be good.
Right. And I know Margie sent some great pictures over from the Lee Walker site. So, and how is that coming along with renting?
They're doing very well. I mean, they still have they have lots of applications. One thing that I want to make sure everybody understands about that is that there are regulations there that they, when you apply, a lot of the people that lived there before came back. There are some people that did not want to come back. They were happy where they got moved to, or they moved out of town, or they found some other place. So there's that group of people. But then there's a group of people that don't comply with the things that Asheville Housing Authority, the rules and regulations that they have. And so that group of people gets kicked out of the applications. And so, I mean, that is their right to do that. So I think that, there's still room there, and playground is in. I mean, if you haven't had an opportunity to go through it, contact me. They're phenomenal looking apartments. They have great views. And I think that, I think it's something to be very proud of. I don't think it looks institutional at all. I think it looks very modern. And I think that it's something that the city should be, and Asheville Housing Authority should be very proud of.
Yeah, they were super nice units. I got to tour them with Margie and crew. And the Cassinger at project at Klingman and Hilliard looks like that's rolling along really nice.
It is. They're fully pre-leased. They're great and affordable units. So no one's moved in yet, but they're fully pre-leased. Nikki and I did a tour with the Urban Land Institute of both 360 Hilliard and the Lee Walker Heights project this past Friday, and everyone was very pleased with the looks of those and the work of those affordable units.
Wow, that's great. Scott?
A quick question for Paul D. On the project at 11 Collier Avenue in South Slope, has there been any more movement on that with the Tribute Group?
I have not heard anything about that project at all, but I do know on the Tribute Cox side, Ashland Cox are really moving along with that project.
Sure. Yep, elevator shafts are going up.
The parking structures actually started coming in, and that goes up really fast with it being prefab. So there's a big change out there already. I think there's 48 affordable units in that phase of the project.
Great.
So Paul, if I remember correctly, in relation to Scott, there was a group that was trying to buy that property from Tribute because they didn't want it to be affordable apartments. And so you're not sure where that stands? I think it was a tree group, the tree group.
I am not. If I understand correctly, that group had a limited time period of when they could actually raise the funds to purchase it. But I don't know anything beyond that. No one's reached out to me. And with COVID, I don't know if there was a change in that date or something like that, but unknown at this point, Margie.
Margie,
do you know anything on that? Chris Day, do you know anything about that?
I don't have an update on that.
Margie, I was just going to clarify, it's the South Slope Neighborhood Association and Asheville Greenworks.
Okay.
Did we in the other section about the 2021 HUD numbers, have those been adopted by the city, or is that just there as a reference?
Whoops, are you talking about our CDBG and home dollars, Barry?
No, the affordable rent and sale limits.
Oh yeah, those are up and on our website.
Okay, so we adopted. I remember for a while we hadn't adopted. We were still in 2000. Okay, so we've adopted the 2021s. Okay.
Yep. And if it's later in the agenda, but we've spent a good amount of time. Thank you, Christina, on updating our website. We still have the HUD tabs to clean up a bit. But if anyone Googles City of Asheville affordable housing, it goes right to first link should be us, which not only has affordable housing resources for the community, but also additional resources and developer investment tools. that all
Oh,
of those
great.
policies and everything are linked right there.
Great. Cool. Super. Okay. Any other questions on the updates? Anything? I mean, I've read through, besides the regular community development updates, the CDBG and the CD homeless. Does anyone have any questions on those? They were separate attachments. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Barry, if I could just add quickly,
Yes,
we've really tried to make the CDBG CB updates around COVID a resource guide as well. So it's, a lot to report on, but we tried to take the last couple pages of that as a resource for individuals and families that might be struggling during COVID and how to access funding for rental assistance, eviction prevention, etc.
Cool. Yeah, no, it was a good resource. It was thorough. Yeah, it was like, I think that was nine pages or something. So, is anything on the Ramada? Is anything? That's just on hold for public hearing now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from committee members on any of the other updates? Okay. We'll move on. Thank you. So we have our list of available homes, as well as the HACA vouchers and the regional statistics. Continues to look pretty bleak. Not seeing much inventory coming up. I did the ones when I prepared the list of the ones that were for sale. I was just curious because there was like 2 or 3 that actually looked pretty good, and then when I looked at that same list about 3 days later, and those 2 or 3 were under contract already. So yes, there's very little inventory, less than 275, and what comes up, goes really fast. Any thoughts someone wants to share?
Hey, Barry, I had a quick question. And just in your ability to pull all those numbers quickly, are you able to, I guess, for recent sales, are you able to run any kind of analysis of, how much over asking price they're typically running?
Good question. I could do that. Yeah. I think it should show on the sale list. I would be able to see the close price compared to the list price. Yeah.
I think that'd just be an interesting number to see if it's, I've seen various news reports and just in my own anecdotal, viewing of houses sold recently. It's, seems like a, minimum of, 10 to 15, and then anywhere of upward of, 40 to 50 over.
Yeah. But no, we could we could look at a deeper dive into, it's not easy, but we could look at like the ones that are sold for how much over asking, and we can't really see if they're like investor buyers, other than we could see, it would take some deep research, but we could see like if they're purchased with mortgages or purchased with cash.
Sure.
So there are a few things that we could layer on just to see, because that's a good point. I would be curious as well from the houses at that price. Are they going to people who need them, or are they going to become rentals?
Right. Something I saw recently, it was a highly informative Twitter post, but somebody was making a point that so often with a lot of sales now, it's buyers with cash, not necessarily income. So the supreme irony is if you have a job and income, you can still be outbid by someone that is either retired or just by sheer luck or circumstance has a huge amount of cash on them.
Yep. Yeah, there's no question. Yeah, and I'm here. It seems like I'm in my personal circles from building and from Thirsty Monk employees. I'm hearing more and more renters being displaced by houses, by the homeowner, the property owners selling. In fact, you personally, but I'm here. I think I've heard just this past month, two of our employees who we're trying to help find housing for, It's really hard because there's not much notice given when these properties go, are told they're going to be for sale.
Right.
So I'm hearing more and more of that. And there's not much inventory I know of coming on the market.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments, questions about the statistics?
I wasn't able to, Barry, update for HCD some of the pricing that we see from CoStar and real estate, but I know we've gotten calls from people about rents jumping, pretty significantly. And we've gotten some calls from the community on that.
I have heard that as well. Yeah. Yeah, I know of. I just heard yesterday of a unit that never, it's a bigger unit, but never topped like 1,900 for rent. And now it's up to 2,300, for like it's a 3-bedroom townhome. So yeah, there's definitely been some significant jumps, which seems with the additional multifamily inventory that's come on, it seems strange, but it doesn't seem like there's it doesn't seem like the vacancy rate is increasing enough to help prices come down.
Yeah, just to add a teeny little shred of humor to that, there's actually a popular sort of housing Twitter meme. The last thing you see before the rent goes up $400, and it's usually some kind of indicator species of either an investor or if you Google the term "the last thing you see before the rent goes up $400," it's a pretty good laugh.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments on that before we move on? Okay, unfinished business. So we've our task forces. So we have our build task force focusing on kind of the development and build side, and then the connect for helping to have improved outreach for those who need, and then the support channels. And I'll share we've met for our build task force. We've met twice now. We met the first time was kind of organizational, and second time was we're starting to kind of looking for some of the kind of the low hanging fruit of things we can focus on and bring some people in for discussions that could help. It's kind of, we're looking at what drives development and build costs up, and what are the pieces that we can assist with, especially those what's within the city's power and what are with some of the other agencies. So it's been a good discussion. I think some really good points have come out, and what we're going to do, the build committee for each meeting, the next couple, we're focusing on some of the specific related agencies or groups. There's a good question that came up about, several things about MSD, as far as like what it takes for them certifying the rebate, if there's a way to scale their fees for value instead of it being a flat fee, and a couple of other things to understand. So our next task force meeting, Kevin from MSD said he'll be able to attend, so we'll be able to kind of get a deeper dive. I think it really helps having some of these, these intimate conversations with folks, and see how everyone could play, and then we'll come back to to see what recommendations we could bring in. But I think it's been really productive. Some are really easy, low hanging fruit from hearing from within our group, and we had some. We had asked the Home Builders Association to send some builders to our last meeting, and we had someone show up. And even from that, just some input in the process of development services, of just silly things like inspections, of how we maybe can streamline. And I've actually even had a discussion with Ben Woody on some of those, and he thought some were very valid, and he was open to looking at implementing them right away. So I think there'll be some good things that come out of it, and it's really good intimate discussion. And I've been really pleased with the group and what we're doing, and look forward to sitting down with Kevin next week. 2 weeks. Andy, can you share what's about Connect? What meetings we've had so far, and kind of what you guys are looking to focus on?
Sure, Barry. We had a good meeting at the end of July with Babs and Joe and myself. like your first meeting, mostly organizational, really trying to figure out, what we're doing and as a work group. But we sort of settled on with the build group, thinking about the supply of housing that left us with the demand side. Not as much low hanging fruit there, just a whole lot more kind of pounding your head against the wall, it seemed like. But we've mapped out for ourselves some data analysis that we want to look at around sort of what the housing need is, particularly trying to figure out if there's pockets of need that aren't being served in programs that are available. Trying to benchmark some of the the data sets like the Bowen report with waitlist data from various organizations serving folks with housing. We talked a little bit about additional input that we wanted to gather from folks in the community, and thought about taking the city's street sheet contact list and using that as a way to reach out to some of those organizations and get a gauge on housing availability, sort of what their turnover, vacancy rate, just get a little ground level knowledge on what's out there in the community. So that's where we are. We didn't have great turnout in our first meeting, so getting another meeting on the calendar to try to bring the rest of the team into the conversation.
Cool.
Joe, anything you would?
No, I think that was a good summary, but yeah, let's definitely let's connect maybe after the meeting today to talk about dates and trying to get everybody on board for our next meeting.
That Data might want to connect to it. It's later on in the agenda. There's the bit about the Lot Star, Matt Allen, and he's still looking. I actually met up with him, and he is still looking to kind of organize kind of an event, a discussion event specifically about that, because they were a sponsor, I think, of that street sheet, and how to get different, better ways to disperse those. So he may be a good person for y'all to invite. That's a great thing about the task force is you can invite folks from outside of outside of our group for it that are interested. So I can connect you with him. He's pretty passionate, and he's an employee of LotSAR. And cool. All right. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, and see if you can get if you guys can get your group together for another meeting so we can keep that moving. Other stuff in that unfinished business is our affordable housing challenges and code, which a lot of those kind of were really discussing. A lot of those we're kind of discussing, I guess, within the two task force, specifically the build. I know we're that list is some of the common stuff that's coming up. So I think that's at least a good guideline. And I guess on the planning and open space amendment task force, any updates, Margie, Scott?
I would just say that hopefully we're winding down to some degree. That's our hope. We're still toying with the River Arts District, comments from various people. But we've made some progress, which is, I didn't think that was going to happen for a long time. Scott, you can comment.
I think, yes, I'm hoping we're coming to at least an end, at least in terms of the task force, and the tentative timeline is to have the recommended text amendments before City Council in December. So yeah, that's two big things still remaining, I guess, are discussing RAD OSP, which is RAD open space. That's a sub-district within that form-based code. just clarifying what's allowed to be built within that sub-district. And then also, I think we've finalized allowing 50% usage of things like aquatic buffers and landscape buffers if they are less than 15% as part of open space. So I think it's a good policy clarification and change that would especially benefit a lot of smaller, tighter urban infill sites.
I think the other thing is that we've got so many members that are on the tree
Urban
committee.
Forestry Commission.
Yeah, and so sometimes it gets very confused. I mean, they kind of overlap, and you get, are we double dipping here? Can we separate it? And so it does have its challenges. And then, just the fact that development, there's just so little land to actually develop on, that when you take the open space and then you take the requirements and ordinances for trees, you end up with even less space to build something.
Right.
So.
Okay.
And it's something that I have pointed out to the task force staff and all, is that technically there are 4 members of the Urban Forestry Commission variously joining the meeting, whilst all the other groups, I think there's 7 other groups, including AHAC, Riverfront Development Commission, Downtown, each have 2 members. So that's been somewhat of an inconsistency. One of the UFC members is actually on as a neighborhood advisory committee NAC member. So it's somewhat of a gray area, but it is just a numerical fact that I've pointed out to staff and the task force.
Is there any movement towards wrapping up? What is the goal?
Yes, I mean, I think certainly on Margie and mine's part, and also Chris Day's, as he is a representative for Chris, remind me, is it development customer? Cannot remember the acronym. It's
Development Services Advisory Group, basically.
Right. Yes. I mean, I think at least between the 3 of us and I think other members of the task force, we would definitely like to wrap up in the next month or so, especially if it's being planned to be presented to City Council in December, which is really not that far away since we're in September now.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to add on that, or questions?
I would just say that last night was planning and zoning when they were trying to look at the new urban code, and I dropped off after a while. It was a very long meeting, and but I think, Scott, we need to probably go back and take a look at open space in these new urban placement, the codes, like Kmart on Patton Avenue and, North Asheville and Merriman Avenue and those kinds of things, where things are already established. I'm not sure how that ended up last night. Does anybody know?
I was going to ask if anyone knows how that ended up. Chris, you didn't hear? I was in 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and on a urban place center, like a focus group. It's funny. Yeah. I hadn't heard much about it, but I was called it, so I was in on this meeting, and it was John, John Spake was really theirs, and Jay Laurie from, representing some of the properties and, development, specifically Spake with the Ingle sites. And yeah, it was kind of weird. It was strange to have a focus group of something that was going to P&Z the next day. But I'm curious what happened. There definitely was a lot, I guess what was on P&Z was for their blessing of it for a phase 1, which included some of the properties that have been discussed, and then to be a phase 2 later. So I'm curious what happened on it. There definitely was quite a bit of discussion about how that will complicate things. And then also, just kind of forced mixing residential and commercial development for those who aren't familiar with doing both of those. And, we introduced the idea or discussed the idea of doing kind of like a transfer of development rights kind of thing. So like instead of Ingalls having to build housing, that they could support an affordable housing project elsewhere on different land. So it was brought up as part of a discussion of a way of how they can assist in the affordable housing construction without having to do it in their parking lot. So we'll see, but yeah, I hadn't heard what the P&Z result was. I just sent a text out to see if I can get an update, but I do know, I think yesterday was, Tony's last meeting, is that right, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair,
Yeah.
Tony Hauser. So there's
Yeah.
a couple of different board members rotating off from that group.
Okay.
I also just want to mention on that interesting meeting that we were both on is the public benefits table for urban centers. And they presented something similar to what they decided to do for hotels, and in which they're trying to gather a certain number of points if you have this commercial center, and if you do or if you don't build affordable housing with it. And so, but in looking at and talking to some other people that are actually nonprofits that do affordable housing, the numbers didn't really, they made them up and they didn't really come out to be the number of points and the number of dollars. But basically, if you don't build affordable housing with your commercial property and you don't have a transfer of real estate, then you're going to have to throw money into the kitty, depending on the number of points you have.
Yeah, definitely. Like in this, I think the one example was like if a 200,000 square foot commercial project would have a certain housing requirement, not necessarily affordable, and then they'd need certain points, and they could get that by providing affordable housing or contributing. And I think in that case it was something like $250,000 to the trust fund or for reparations.
Right, and I don't think that was well received by the community particularly.
Didn't seem to be.
No.
All right, but yeah, we'll see if we get. I'm curious what happened on that, but we'll figure that out the next day or so. All right, moving on for new business. Homeward Bound Landlord Partnership. Looks like Jesse's joining us to share on that.
Yes, thank you, Barry, and thank you, Paul, for inviting me to the session this morning. I appreciate it. This has definitely been on Paul's radar for a while, and I've been here for about 8 months. And one of the things that was really important to me when I came in is talking to our landlord partners and realizing what was important to them and what some of their pain points are. We've been around for a while, but now we've had the opportunity to really revamp our program, rebrand, so to speak, and offer more supportive services to our landlord partners. So we're doing quarterly inspections. We're available to our landlord partners Monday through Friday. We have a full team of housing specialists now to assist them, and really marketing that in the community as Homeward Bound is here not only to assist our clients, but that our relationships with our landlords are equally as important. And we're here to help manage those properties and help manage that tenancy for you. We did also just receive new funding from Blue Cross and Blue Shield and the North Carolina Coalition to End Homelessness, specifically for landlord incentives. So we're really excited about this. This allows us to really just be a little bit more competitive in the market. We've always done double security deposits, but now we're able to do move-in bonuses whenever a landlord is able to offer a new unit. We have funds to cover damages. When we're doing the inspections and moving folks in, we've got some funds to kind of help with some of those upfits and get units ready. And then if we have, a good fit with a landlord and a client, we're able to do essentially a release bonus as well. So this just allows us to understand that really our property owners are caring about the bottom line right now because of where our market is, and it allows Homeward Bound to really be competitive with this, which is exciting. And in terms of some of our recruitment efforts, there's a couple different campaigns that I am leading here for the organization and also for some of our other continuum of care agencies as well. I'm starting a mobile home park campaign. Obviously, mobile homes continue to be some of the most affordable units in our market right now, but also looking at those landowners and property managers that are managing the most units, just to kind of help me manage my time. And also starting those conversations with developers and multifamily units. So there's kind of 3 different ways that we're approaching it. And really the idea is to change some of that stigma. You know, we've got a homelessness that's been in the news recently. And as Joe mentioned, we're thrilled and excited for the days in coming down the line. But that is a little bit further out. So this opportunity that we have now in partnering with landlords is our immediate answer. And so Paul and I have talked a lot about how we can get the word out. Homeward Bound has done some press releases, and I think we're thinking about having a press release that might come from the city as well. And it also, you know, we've just got these new emergency vouchers, and that's going to allow us to just have a better partnership with HACA. Paul, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to go ahead and make a plug here regarding what we talked about. Fair market rate 2022 has gone down, which is very interesting and very problematic, as you can imagine. It is not the trend that we have been seeing. Certainly landlords have been charging over $1,000 for 1-bedroom units. So this came as a surprise, and it causes all sorts of problems for HACA, for all of us COC agencies, and really just continues to raise that bar for landlords. So David Nash, being the wonderful advocate that he is, has hired a third party and is leading an appeal to do another rent contract and to try to get that essentially revised and see if there's any opportunity for us to have that back up. So I think Paul was going to look and see if there was any additional funding sources to help HACA out with that. But
so that's awesome, Jesse. And Barry, if I can have a minute just to kind of put it in something in context for the group and our Nielsen busting ratings on YouTube with all the people watching. But I do think that this voucher story is really important. I'm so grateful for Jessie being here. She handles my emails of trying to enter into that world, and Kate Pett's going to talk next. But you know, we're presenting now the voucher list from HACA about the vouchers that are sitting and stirring on the street. We're getting these funding resources that are coming in to help with these vouchers. I think thanks to get more vouchers, to David's credit, with voucher payment standards, he's kind of took the financial argument of not accepting a voucher to a certain extent off the table. So then dealing with the stigma issues that stick around with vouchers. City, I think, is doing our part. I know we can always do better, but we've really incentivized vouchers in our policy. Grateful that folks out there, Chris Day, selling those aspects of those policies. But at the end of the day, if we don't have units or landlords accepting these vouchers, we can get all the money we want to in the world, and it's not going to make any difference if the folks don't have a place to call home. So we did coordinate an effort with WLOS, who reached out about a story in June. And then I, of course, pitched back what I wanted to talk about, which was this collective voucher story, which they did in the middle of June, talking about vouchers, emergency rental assistance, Homeward Bound, our other folks in the COC like Elida Homes and Helpmate. And then, of course, Kate Pett's effort with Thrive, kind of a call to action on landlords. So to Jesse's credit, she's specifically really focusing on this and keeping, of course, their vouchers in mind, but thinking bigger picture. I'm trying to insert myself where I can to help out with this, but we need to hopefully bring in front of this group a way to incentivize those landlords or let them know that these programs are out there, which is why Jesse and Kate are here today, to get more landlords to be a part of the solution. The homeless struggles, permanent supportive housing, or just regular folks who have a voucher who can't find anyone to accept it. So that's the premise of having this here. I don't know if anyone has any quick questions on that. Jesse, thanks. And sorry, Barry, to jump in there. And if you want to move to Kate, she's got a couple slides, but I just wanted to put this in context for the group here of really important folks around the table who can help share this message.
Sure. No, that's real helpful. Just to understand that, so Jesse, what your programs are specifically reaching out for clients that are currently homeless, and then Thrive is like for voucher, like focusing on voucher. I'm just trying to understand the difference in the two programs.
Yes, and Kate can speak to that as well. So Homeward Bound, most of our clients are single individuals. They're folks who have been chronically homeless. That is how we prioritize our grant slots for housing. And Thrive is certainly assisting more families, and Kate can kind of speak to some of those guidelines as well. So it's a different client base, but still the same need in terms of a call for landlords.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, Thrive is serving families. Our tenants have to be currently living in public housing and who have children under 18. Most of our families have at least 2 kids. And one of the efficiencies, I think, of our program is that by moving families out of public housing into high opportunity neighborhoods, we're creating new space in our public housing communities. So for every 1 family moved, we're actually helping 2 families, because we're able to move families off of waiting lists from public housing into more stable housing there.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I was actually pleased. You probably know Kate is. Yeah, well, actually, I sold a property just last month that was put on to Thrive. So it was a local person bought it and set up a new nonprofit and purchased 2 duplexes, 4 units, and put them onto the Thrive program. So I was, very, very excited when I see things that I build go to what they're intended for. So, but Kate, if you can share an update about your program and what are things that, we as a committee can help with.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and thanks for the time. I sent a few slides to Paul just because I'm such a visual learner myself. So Paul's going to show those, and I'll give you a rundown on how things are going.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I will present. Kate, just do the classic next slide, and I will follow along.
Yeah, so Thrive Asheville, as you know, we're really not our long-term mission is really to bring people together and to connect the dots so that we can do things more effectively and efficiently. And for us, the landlord-tenant partnership has been a great example of that. Our goal is not to be a long-term program provider, but instead to find ways that existing programs can work better together. So the next slide addresses the partners who are making the landlord-tenant partnership possible. So as you know, the city of Asheville is a real partner in the landlord-tenant partnership. Paul has been nearly constantly on call, I feel like, to make this happen. Also, significant funding from the city of Asheville, $100,000, has made a lot of the programming possible. We also work very closely with Asheville Housing Authority folks and super appreciate them. We have independent tenant coaches who are partners in this project, and Children First Communities and Schools of Buncombe County is also serving as the fiscal agent, but also Greg Borum is just a close advisor and connector to the community. So this is really a collaborative effort, and we're grateful for that. Next slide. So we kicked off this program officially in the summer of 2020. So we're really just at about 13 months of operation, and our results thus far are that we've moved 19 families from public housing communities into what we consider opportunity neighborhood areas of our city. And as I mentioned, by moving those 19 families out of our public housing communities, we've enabled 19 families to move from waiting lists into more stable housing. So far, 38 families impacted by this initiative. We had a little bit of a focus group in June with the landlords who'd been in the program for a while. There were 6 landlords present, and 5 out of 6 of them said that they would refer to the program and to other landlords, and one of them had just been in the program for 2 months. So he said it was too soon. But in general, 100% of the landlords report that the program is beneficial to them. Additionally, they shared that the program, that they were really learning something from the program. I wanted to mention that because one of our goals in the landlord-tenant partnership is, as Jesse mentioned, to really break down the stereotypes about who voucher holders are and about what that experience can be like for landlords. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is that multiple landlords mentioned that as a result of accepting vouchers for the first time, they were really learning something about the challenges that our neighbors in this community are facing, and that they felt really, they felt like they had really grown and were excited to be a part of this program. So many of the landlords have been the source of referrals now, and so I feel good about that. You can go to the next slide, Paul. Our goals from this point are to move 6 more families into high opportunity neighborhoods so that our total impact is 50 families. You might remember that this is a pilot project. Our goal was to really try this out and to identify what was working and what's not working. Some of the things we've learned already is that we want to expand tenant supports slightly, not a lot. We see that tenants sometimes need support making this transition from previous neighborhoods into new neighborhoods, and dealing with new expectations and new neighbors. So we see a need to expand the tenant supports and also to adjust the way in which the tenant coaches are interacting with landlords and tenants. So we're kind of tweaking that piece. We're also really working on developing things which have not existed so far, like a landlord handbook that is visually engaging and accessible so that a landlord can actually express an interest in accepting vouchers and have an easy how-to guide that helps them navigate the process. We're documenting lessons learned because we are interested in growing this program and seeing the lessons that we're learning also be applied to other situations where we're trying to have greater voucher acceptance. We're intending in the next 6 months to work on raising ongoing resources to continue this program and to increase the program footprint. I frequently get calls from landlords who are just outside the city boundaries, and of course city funding is limited to operating in the city, so we haven't been able to work with a whole ring of landlords who would be interested in accepting vouchers and making neighborhoods accessible that would be really beneficial to families. So we're going to look at finding resources that continue our work in the city, but also really allow us to expand the footprint so more folks can benefit. I think that's maybe the last slide. Is that the last slide, Paul? It is. Yeah. So I'll circle back around, so you can turn that off unless someone has a question. I think I'll circle back around to say that, you know, as Jesse mentioned, we're serving different populations and maybe with a slightly different purpose. We really see the landlord-tenant partnership as, an effort at disrupting the cycle of poverty and addressing the sort of historic segregation in our community by integrating neighborhoods. So that's kind of the biggest, longest term ambition of this program, that really focusing on children, families, and integration.
Give me an example of high opportunity neighborhood.
Yeah, so we're using non-QCTs. So, you know, in some ways it's somewhat arbitrary, Margie, because Asheville's so small. And so it's not, I don't think, as relevant as when this criteria is used in larger neighborhood or in larger cities. But for example, East-West Asheville is in a QCT. I keep calling it QT. Yeah, qualified census tract. Thanks. So East-West Asheville has a higher rate of poverty, so it is a qualified census tract, whereas West Asheville, west of 240, is a non-QCT because it has lower poverty. So a high opportunity neighborhood is one that has lower poverty. So this program is trying to deconcentrate poverty by helping families access neighborhoods where right now they don't normally have access. I'll just say one more thing, which is that, you know, historically, much of the voucher acceptance happened in rings right around our existing public housing. So the goal here is to incentivize landlords to accept vouchers in neighborhoods where there have not historically been voucher supported tenancies.
Now, one of the things, Kate, I'm going to go ahead and call you out and say thank you in front of the group here. Kate and I have been trying to kind of send referrals to each other. You know, when we have a multi-bedroom unit that we can't use, I'll try to pass that on to Kate. And Kate has recently sent over similarly some landlords that weren't in those neighborhoods that she was looking for, but certainly are great fits for our client base. And so our goal moving forward is for all of us to really just work in coordination with each other. So thank you for that, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the great potential here that our community can really think about is how can we pull together all of the folks who are trying to leverage these federal dollars and find the most efficient set of incentives and tools that will make our community really grab onto every voucher that we have. That is definitely the big picture goal. And so love to continue the conversation about how we can convene that group and really identify all the opportunities. Scott and Joe both had questions.
Actually, Margie had the exact same question I had, and you answered it perfectly. Thank you.
And just quickly here, you know, these are the big challenges. We've got a tight supply market out there, so very high rents that are coming up as well. So people know they can grab those. I'm getting some feedback somewhere. But so that importance of figuring this out collectively and together, and that's why we thought it great to present to this group. And Jesse and Kate, big thanks for, you know, helping us coordinate some of this stuff together. And so thank you for that. Barry?
Joe, your hand.
Yeah. Hey, Kate.
Hey,
Good to see you. So I'm interested in your tenant coaches and to hear a little bit more about them. Who are they? Are they volunteers? You know, what are they doing? If you don't mind addressing that.
Yeah, for sure. So the tenant coaches are two women, sort of like long-term community assets, Lucia Doherty and Anna Marie Smith. They have different expertise in terms of the type of support that they provide. You probably know that Lucia has a long background in fair housing access, and Anna used to work with On Track Financial, and so her background is in financial coaching. So they work sort of as a team. They've developed a handbook for tenants that helps them guide the process or helps them understand what might be sort of the universe of questions that they might have as they make this transition. So one of the tricky parts has been how to provide this service to tenants without making the assumption that just because people are poor that they need support, and how to provide this service in a way that doesn't further the assumption or any kind of bias that landlords hold about who poor people are. So we've our first year of implementation, we really tried to make this strictly at the request of tenants. And we have not in any way compelled tenants to participate. It's really just been when a tenant moves in, they get a welcome basket from the tenants or from the tenant coaches with some nice gifts and with information about what's available to them and a copy of the handbook. And then the tenants can follow up or not after they've met the tenant coaches. I think what we've learned is that understanding the leasing terms is a key moment in this transition, and we're going to try and figure out how we can get the tenant coaches moved up in the process. They have been just entering the relationship once the move has happened. And we think that we want to provide an opportunity to get the coaches and the tenants looking at the lease together. So we pay them. That was part of your question. They are paid, they are contracted. And I think that they are really, this is a pilot. We're trying to figure it out. And our goal is really to understand and have a clear blueprint for how we could really make recommendations about the level of support that these tenants need going forward.
Great, thank you.
Andy?
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering, I mean, it's just great results, and from both of these efforts to expand voucher acceptance and certainly laying the groundwork for, for landlords to increase their acceptance of this. I'm wondering how this, if it's possible for this to fit with, what has happened in some other communities around the country where source of income has been included as part of the city's non-discrimination ordinance. So we know our non-discrimination ordinance was just updated by council back in July. I'm wondering, is there any thought to including source of income as part of the way we think about housing discrimination locally?
Andy, I don't know if that's for me necessarily, but I know we've talked about it, but if I understand correctly, and I can reach out to legal, I don't think we can do that for some reason in North Carolina, but I don't know. I'll double check that as to why. I know it's been talked about, but I felt like there was that's something we can't do. But yeah, we just did, that thing that was passed in June or July by the city. I'll follow up on that.
I could say something really quickly about that. I mean, I think that's really so important because even though I know that I have seen and heard stories directly from tenants where they will say, I was told when I knocked on this door, I don't take vouchers. So I know that that's a real experience. I will say that I think it's a slightly different tier than the group that I'm working with, which I think is just another reason to go back to this idea about how do we really create a convening or how do we map the whole spectrum of people who are trying to access vouchers? Because the group that I'm working with, my slice of the pie here, is really even getting to the landlord to even start the conversation. There's a lot more in place and a lot more support required than just making sure, they don't show up as competitive applicants, I guess I would say. So it's almost like the least of their problems is the landlord not accepting vouchers. They've got all these other challenges that we have to overcome. But if we could also start to look at that next tier that I think Andy's question really points to, I think that's really critical to really allowing a space then for my folks to move to. So that's what we're trying to do, is keep moving people along this pipeline.
Great. Thanks. I do have I have a couple questions. So for how, because it's come up as discussion, not necessarily with any under your programs, but what are, for some developments that accept voucher housing, what is the support services available? Because I think the tenant support services are valuable, and there's been, we had a meeting a few back as whether if there's projects that accept, voucher housing, if we should have a nonprofit agency they can partner with to offer support services, so the support service isn't just calling the police. What are some of the options in the community that are out there?
I just want to speak to that and kind of mimic that, Barry. So obviously, Homeward Bound is coming with that intense case management for those tenants. They're doing housing stability training, how to have a good landlord relationship, how to be a good neighbor, how to do housekeeping and things like that. And that is one of the things that in my recent conversations with landlords that they have said makes a big difference to somebody leaning more to working with a more supportive service program like Homeward Bound than just working on a standard voucher, because their experience has been that HACA has done a wonderful and excellent job at providing that financial assistance, but they would really like to see some more of those supportive services to them as a landlord. Who can they call if they're having, lease violations or things like that? So I don't know that I know of other resources, but I would be happy to help connect that, because I do hear that as well. Kate, do you have any guidelines or suggestions?
Well, I guess I would just say that I think this is a really tricky point. And in some ways, I'm not sure that I think it's a great idea to have kind of a one-stop shop that develops a service for tenants, because again, then I think it gets us back into that mind frame that all people experiencing poverty have a similar set of needs. Jesse's population has a completely different set of needs than the families that I'm working with. So of the 19 families we've moved so far, 3 of them have had challenges. I could have included a slide on that, but I was keeping it to 5 minutes or something. But so 3 out of 19. So I think that's a pretty good number. I think this is a pretty successful group of people. And I wouldn't want to add to these mostly working single families the assumption that they have to participate in some type of regular meeting, a class, something like that I think might be much more appropriate for a population like Jessie is working with. I'm not totally sure how her case management works, but case management tends to be somewhat time consuming for the recipients of that service. So I think what I would say, Barry, is that we should try again to keep mapping out and segmenting this group so that we can create services that match them, rather than trying to have a one-size-fits-all when we know that the needs are so different.
So who would you, I mean, how, yeah, I mean,
It's
who do you,
created. I don't think it exists. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what it's like. Who, it's like, I mean, there's, when there's one project in particular we've discussed that I know the landlord has wished there was resources to lean on, and it's, and I think they accept, I don't know, 30, 60 vouchers at their place. So, and I know like they could use help, and I'm trying to just understand like what are the resources and who could they go to, so it always doesn't escalate to police. I'm just curious, like what are the other community resources for something like that? And is that something within the scope of what any of you, could assist with?
I think, to me, and Jessie chime in, but to me, that's something to be developed. That is a need in this community to understand the unique needs of different segments of our population and to design the intervention that fits kind of the place along that pipeline. Yeah, and I think that it's just very important that it not be a one-size-fits-all.
I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, we're working with folks that have not been in housing for the last couple of years, so it's that level of intense case management for many of our clients is absolutely necessary, but I think it looks very different. I mean, we use regular HACA vouchers to graduate a lot of our programs outside of the services that we offer. And I know that, Michelle is awesome at HACA and communicating with landlords, and the eligibility specialists are doing some of that, but on the tenant side, that's certainly something I could explore and chat more with Michelle and others about.
How does so what are the incentives that you offer right now for landlords are coming from where? And this, and I'll just where I'm going to connect this conversation is further, on our agenda, the item I is called scaled affordable housing rebates or credits for shorter term commitments, because I see, that is from my understanding of like housing trust fund and our city funds, unless a landlord or property owner, unless a property owner, whether they're built, whether it's for sale or for lease, is willing to make a, 20 to 30 year deed commitment with their property, there's not much city options. That's why I brought this other option on the agenda. Like, what is a shorter term commitment that if someone wanted to try it but still there's still some scale benefits. So, curious kind of your thoughts on that, and then where your current funding is coming from, and if there's anything that you could, offer to that conversation we're going to have about a, more of a scaled approach.
On Homeward Bound side, our funding it's privately funded. It's Blue Cross Blue Shield, dedicating that money to the North Carolina Coalition to End Homelessness. So there are 4 agencies within the state that are receiving that funding. And it was specifically for that purpose, for homeless agencies specifically. The conversations that I've had with Paul and Emily and Brian is that right now that puts some of our other COC agencies that are doing the same work at a disadvantage because they don't have those financial incentives right now. So while we have that, those conversations have to look very different. And so I would love to see if there's something more on a COC level, or if even it could be written into that funding proposal to offer more of agencies that essentially the same sales pitch to property owners of the incentives that we could use to back up our program. And Kate, I think your funding is completely different.
Yeah. So we got $100,000 from the city, and not quite, an additional $50,000 from the Dogwood Health Trust. So our pilot total cost is $150,000 to move 50 families. So I just want to stress again, I say to everyone, this is the best bang for the buck we can think of in terms of affordable housing. I do think that we need to think about how are we going to support these landlords long term. So we offer landlords a $2,400 stipend. They get $1,200 when they sign a lease, and they get $1,200 6 months into the first year. That's to offset extended vacancy, additional time for going through the HACA process of accepting vouchers. It's time consuming, and that's one of the things that we could work on is how to make that process faster. That would make it more cost efficient for landlords. So I think there's lots of ways we could work on continuing to drive down the cost for landlords. But at this time, it's still costly. And so I think that the city and other sources should consider how are we going to keep these landlords in it, particularly if the reimbursement rate goes down. These landlords have $2,400 for the first year. Obviously, all of them have wanted to continue the contracts or their leases with, we just had some enter their second year lease, and they've all wanted to continue. But I worry about that long term. So I think that the city one thing is that we'll need more money from the city to continue this work. And I think that the city should consider how should it continue to reward landlords who are doing the extra work and, maybe taking a small financial hit. How can the city be co-investors with those landlords in that process ongoing with perhaps an additional annual incentive or something like that?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I'm curious. Just my my personal experience is we had we sold 2 brand new duplexes to go into the program, and there in our experience, there was actually. What's funny is there's nothing that deemed them affordable, that they qualified for any rebates from the city, any rebates from MSD, and that was it's odd. So I think that's part of if there's people who want to do this, what are the other tools that we can use? So if something is being used for affordable purposes, even if it doesn't have a 30-year deed restriction, that what are the other tools that are available? Because it was just personally, it was frustrating to say that there wasn't any rebate available. So, and I think it would encourage more developers, builders, and landlords, to join programs if there was scaled ways to do it. Because you're saying like on Kate, I'm hearing it's $2,400 is the stipend, and then rent is basically what the 2021 voucher rates would be, and there's no Yeah, there's no additional funding coming into that. So it's really set by the voucher amount.
Yeah. I think, you know, one of the landlords who's in our program, Evelyn Heron, I don't know if you all know Evelyn, but she's fabulous long-term Asheville resident, and she has a few rentals. And, you know, she made this pitch at a forum that Paul participated in where she said, you know, I want the city to see me as an affordable housing provider. I want to be seen as a micro affordable housing provider, and I want to have access to incentives as well, so that this is a viable strategy for me long term. And I think that's exactly it. I honestly just had a conversation with somebody else last night who said, you know, we're in a co-housing community. We want to take 2 or 3 of our units and make them affordable housing. How can the city help me? And I said, well, I don't know right now, but that is the right direction to be going, is how can we see an affordable house on every block, and how can the city partner with that to create these micro developments?
So the quick answer to that is the change to our land use incentive grant that allows smaller landlords. I think right now the policy says 2 or more houses, that if they provide them to an affordable housing, looking at that income, we would rebate back their property tax for the city property tax on the house value, not the land, but the house value. So I've got 2 people who have reached out to me so far that are smaller, I guess, micro unit landlords per se. And so far, one of them doesn't like the compliance, that they just want to be able to do it and get the property tax rebate. But, you know, we've got to show that in something. And then the other one I'm working with right now that she's considering it with the income restrict. You know, we just want to make sure they're income qualified. After that, prove that once a year to us, we'll rebate back the taxes. We haven't had any official takers yet, but people are asking about it. And no crying here by our men's, but if it does take off, you know, yikes, we've got some compliance, but we'll just figure that out later like we usually do.
I've got 2 questions, one for Kate and one for Jesse. Kate, or either who can ever answer this, can you tell us who or more of the landlords that you're talking about, large corporate companies that build, big complexes? Are they individual, independent, very small, 10 to 50 unit type things, but they're not a Hawthorne, they're not some of these other big, okay. So
yeah, it's been very surprising to me, Margie, that honestly, of our 19 properties, we don't have one that's in a large development. Every single one of our landlords are mom and pop landlords who have kind of a social benefit orientation. So I think it's a really interesting conversation that I could use help on with anybody at this group, is how can we crack into that other market? Because it really does seem like if we're having this kind of success with mom and pop landlords, I mean, even a tiny percent of those developments would make be a game changer for the community.
We have talked about this, about, you know, what if every apartment complex took 5 vouchers across the city of Asheville? I mean, would that just take away our need right there? Probably, maybe. But then, you know, we'd have to layer some funding there. But yes, that's something that we haven't been able to crack at the city either.
And Margie, we're using both. Most of our landlord partners are individuals. Some of them are individuals that own numerous properties, over 100, mobile homes and things like that. But we also have a strong partnership with MHO and PPM and some of the income restricted units.
So, Jesse, have you worked at all with Western North Carolina Ministries, the rescue mission? Do you work with them? Because I spent almost 2 hours there yesterday, and I mean, they have people that are living there that have children, and again, some of them are well on the way to recovery. And do either of you work with those folks to get them into stabilized housing?
So for Homeward Bound, we have quite the qualification process. All of our services start at the day center located downtown on Ann Street. So folks will have to, as you can imagine, our point in time count, we had over 500 individuals experiencing homelessness. So it kind of varies on our different programs. Some folks who are staying at the Mission might kind of cycle through and show up on our by name list and on our chronic list, and we would be assisting them. We're also, we work with ABCCM with our SSVF program. So we're receiving a lot of community referrals, but also prioritizing some of those individuals that have experienced the most chronic homelessness when we slate folks for housing.
Cool. Chris?
Yeah, I had a quick follow-up question for Paul. So you made reference that small, like maybe two landlords that have just 2 rental units can qualify for, if they make those affordable, can qualify for that land use incentive grant. Is there a time commitment for that? And what is the tax benefit? Is there a time associated with that tax benefit?
So it would follow along with the current land use incentive grant. So we changed that a couple months back, and everything stays the same. They would do the point structure and everything like that. And then depending on the amount of points, every 5 points equals 1 year of city property tax abatement on the house value only. We still get the land taxes, but it is that commitment, the typical 20-80-20. Now, if they have 2 units and both of them are affordable, I think, we're not going to look at their whole portfolio, I don't think, like of all the units they own. That question has come up if we have to do clarity there. But if somebody says, I've got 2 units, I'm going to make both of these affordable, and 80% AMI or less, and the commitment of 20 years affordability, back to Barry's point about maybe that needs to be different, we will do those property tax abatements.
So it has, I can have a longer conversation with you, Paul, but I think this understanding that policy and trying to find some negotiating some owners through it again, so that we can test it out and find out where are the sticking points, because it's a great tool and a great opportunity. But I think, it's like helping landlords who can advertise a place tomorrow and find 100 applicants. We have to make these processes so smooth and so time efficient. Otherwise, it just doesn't make it worth their time. I've had landlords say to me, it takes so much time for me to accept vouchers. I'd rather just write you a check and you do something good with it. So I think we just have to keep looking at these processes and saying, can somebody really access them? And can a busy landlord make this work in a time efficient way?
We hear that, and we've been working on a little list. If this does take off-ish, how does that, do we have the budget for it? Do they have to go to HCD and council? There's been talk, if it's a small amount, can it be approved on a staff level? I don't think so. Technically, is 2 units enough? Because then if everyone jumps on board, then we've got to look at capacity. All those things will be talked about. But I think that the premise is great, with the idea being, hey, if we can rebate back $1,200 a month, or a year in property taxes, that's $100 a month that we're contributing towards that gap from the voucher to the market rate, trying to remove the financial question off the table. But happy to take any thoughts on that. We've made a leap into it, but we might need a little cleanup.
So Paul, if somebody has a home, I'm talking about an individual homeowner, and they're going to build 2 ADUs that they want to, or 2 units that they want to make affordable. Let's say this person is in their 50s or 60s, okay, and they have the wealth or the ability to do that. 20 years is a long time. So for someone that's typically the person that you're going to find that has the built up wealth to be able to do this. So could you knock it down to like 10 or 15 years?
I mean,
So
I think
20-80-15 or 20-80-10.
Come on, it just took me 2 years to get everyone to say 20-80-20. So come on,
I think
simple here, folks. But I do see there's a possibility there, and it's definitely worth a discussion. I got to say though, not to play devil's advocate at all, but there's been a lot of, Margie, I think we talked about this at some point, a lot of push from the community that they want affordable units to be permanent forever. And so that we're up against that side of it as well. But I do think, to Barry's point on this, it's worth a discussion. And then to Kate's point, how do we simplify it?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about big apartment complexes
Right.
or anything like that. I'm just talking about the homeowner that wants to do something.
Yeah.
And right now it'd be
That's the only person.
Margie, and right now it would be. So I don't know, maybe a separate policy could be created, unknown.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of the discussion we've been bringing up that we want to really have a deeper dive is like, what are the tools that are available, even if it's as, simple as, for a new construction, it's tapping into water and sewer fee rebates that right now they follow the lead of the city for affordable certification. And maybe there's ways to do that aren't as stringent. But I think, we'll have that conversation. But Jesse, Kate, thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for what y'all are doing. I think they're great programs, and I really appreciate getting a deeper understanding of the programs and the specific ones that you offer, so we know where to direct people as the needs come up. So thank you. Next up on our agenda is there's a developer meet and greet with Emma. Is that something that's active, Paul? I hadn't heard about that.
No, just I wanted to let everyone know that there's been some community conversations with the Emma neighborhood, and some of the work about, back to the public benefits table, per se, that might be for urban centers, but is something for neighborhoods as well. But they're a very engaged community, and they were interested in seeing if, AHAC would want to partner with them, some local developers, and get a few folks. And I thought about this group to have like this conversation with the Emma community and local developers. And as a community that's very engaged, having this kind of real listening conversation with local developers about, hey, we're the community, this is what we're looking for, and just have a discussion if there's some, win-wins, so instead of like, that community or those greedy developers, like how do we get into a room and have a really good conversation about what you all are looking to do and what communities want as well. So I didn't know, Barry, if it was like you and Margie and Chris, maybe a few other people that wanted to set up a meeting with the Emma neighborhood, but I told them I'd bring it up.
Sure. Yeah. Is this like around that? Because I know there was like a mobile home park group that was looking to create like a little land trust. Is this what you're talking about, that group, or is this a different group by Emma community?
It's that neighborhood association, but not specifically that project.
Okay, got it.
I think it's Emma Poder you're referring to. Power in Spanish.
But yeah,
so I think we have a meeting with them tonight, Barry. If you I don't need to put you on the spot, but if you think there's interest, I could share some emails and maybe let y'all set something up, and then we can join.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm always interested. We're always interested in certainly people who want to be a lead in making a change of how we can empower them and connect them with the tools. So yes, absolutely. Infill developer training, is that some of these items I'm just asking them?
Yeah, these are just things that are coming up in community conversation, Barry. So thanks for letting us pop them on the list here. But is there an infill developer training was done a couple years ago? I know we're still in the midst of COVID stuff, but is there an interest at maybe AHAC sponsoring, an infill developer seminar in the spring at some point? I think some of these neighborhoods want to figure out how they can get access to capital to actually purchase the vacant lots in their neighborhood. And we've had some good conversations with that. And then they partner with a local infill developer or learn how to do stuff themselves. And it's a heavy lift, but I do wonder if we should, kind of throwing it out and think about that as something AHAC could sponsor like in the spring.
I like that. Yeah. And maybe tying it in with almost like setting a goal with our task forces too. It's almost like a wrap up goal, because I think a lot of the things, at least we've covered in the build are things that would be added to an infill developer's manual. So I could see that, maybe that's what we look at, kind of the goal of wrapping up our, these task forces kind of is the culmination of something like that. I can see that. Yeah, I think the last time there was an infill developer training was done by the outside group, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I see how we could be a lead in that and kind of be it, from culminating some of the, putting together some of the things we're learning through our deep dives and then sharing them in like a new resource guide. Yeah, I like that.
And if, bringing somebody in, if we need to find a way to help pay for, like we can help coordinate it. If you all want to be kind of the sponsor, I would think this would be the group that maybe would want to be behind that. But we can help coordinate if that's the end game of your committee meetings. It sounds good. Yeah,
it could tie in with, I know what Matt, with the Lost Star group, when I met with him, I was kind of asking them, like, what is your focus, for affordable, like this affordable housing seminar? Is it reaching the public, those who need it, or is it more trying to resource those who have the ability to provide in a certain ability, whether it's, the real, realtors of how to create a better, whether it's realtors, developers. So I think he was targeting definitely, he was thinking more on kind of the providers. So there might be a way to kind of tie that in, I'll see, I think they were hoping to do something in October, or maybe their first round meeting, which right now it's, seems almost impossible to plan any in-person event because we don't know when we'll be able to safely do that. But yeah, I think shooting for the spring for something is a great goal, Paul. So we'll keep that on, and we'll kind of maybe we can discuss that in our build committee, and Andy and Joe, if you can kind of keep that in mind, that might help also with some focus of our focus groups, how to, what we're going to culminate in. That way we don't have a task force that goes as long as some of the ones Scott, Margie, and Chris are on. So great. Yeah, that's great. And next up, there's something about the rehab mortgage insurance. Well, actually, Scott had a question.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Scott.
I was just going to make a quick note in the chat. I put a couple of links in there's a group called the Incremental Development Alliance, and they do small developer workshops. I'm assuming that's been done here before, but
that's who did the last. Yeah.
So thanks, Scott. So that I hadn't heard of that, and in one of these developer meetings, somebody mentioned that too. I don't know if anyone's familiar with this mortgage program. I was not. It's the 203 K Rehab Mortgage, where we've heard about houses under 275 that need work. This mortgage program, if still real and active, seems to be a mortgage program to purchase the home and rehab it all in one mortgage. Has anyone ever used it before or familiar with it? I know Paul, it's still difficult. Yeah. Incomes.
Yeah, Paul Heathman, you know anything about that one? I mean, I've seen and heard of the 203Ks. I don't have familiarity with them, but Paul, anything to share? Have you had experience?
Yeah, FHA is something that's kind of come and gone. It's an FHA program, and it is specifically for rehab. It's not something that we use, so I'm not really super familiar with it. But when I identify like a case where I think that it's the best option, I know who to refer it to. Donna King at Union Home Mortgage. If we're interested, she would probably be willing to come in, maybe just pop into a meeting and speak to kind of the details of it, since she's kind of elbow deep in them sometimes.
So the goal basically is for buying a house that needs the work, right? I mean, that's kind of the intent of this, is I understand it's for when a house is being purchased, but for it to appraise and be able to it needs a lot of work. So it's a loan that closes on the home for someone and then also funds the work needed. Is that yep. What the program is? Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, the pivotal sort of difference there is the appraisal. You're either getting an appraisal for as is for what you see, or you're getting a subject to appraisal, which includes both the existing structure and some list of improvements. And that's just kind of what marks something as like a rehab loan.
Got it. Let me ask Paul while we got you talking. I read about there's like some FHA guideline that changed that now gives more credence to like rental income as verification, is like a qualification. Do you know much about that?
This is brand new. Yeah. This is brand new. I just heard about this yesterday,
Okay.
and that it's maybe kind of coming through the secondary market, but yeah, getting history, getting, landlords to report could eventually help people qualify for loans, especially those who have some sort of unique income situation, particularly self-employed. Those are the ones that are so challenged these days. But yeah, I think that it's a decent possibility. It seems hopeful that something like that would be adopted, but it may be slow. But yeah, it looks like it's a really, really good conversation, and FHA can pave the way for secondary market type stuff, and that could be what's happening.
Yeah, I was trying to, I read about it, and I was trying to understand like but it sounds like it's brand new. But yeah, my base understanding of it is that it'll put more weight on people's past rent history towards helping them to qualify for home loans.
Yeah, I think the conversation that we had a meeting at the bank just yesterday, and the conversation around it was to make sure we're communicating to every borrower we know as early as possible that if they are renting, that they should definitely be going ahead and getting the report, the credit reporting associated with that rental, and I think it's up to them and the landlord to make it happen, but that it could become very impactful and helpful. And, I work with customers, our borrowers, some of them, maybe took an on-track class 2 or 3 years ago, and we're helping them. This, that's a hot example. Somebody that I'm working with now, and that it's a long game. So if we're reporting that rent now, we can use it later, and the policy might change.
Good. Yeah, it's always good. I mean, it's good to see new tools and adjustments to old tools that might make it wider, more accessible. So yeah, I was excited to see about it. I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, we're looking through it, through this specific sort of affordable lens, but the idea around being able to use history of payment as a qualifying to overcome sort of other irregularities is you potentially have a huge group of people, the elderly, that would get behind that as well, because some of them are able to pay but no longer qualify because of their income change in retirement. So if you've got a huge group of voting, a huge group of voters, the elderly, which always vote, right? And then you have also this affordable idea, you could get a big groundswell behind it. I think maybe that's what's happening.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. Next up, bit on eviction moratorium. What do we want to say? What update do we have on that? I just know it just expired, right?
Yeah. And if I can ask a quick question, Barry and Paul Heathman, should we, since this is policy committee, should we, in another update to Luigi or something, require that the property manager or landlord submit the rental payment or report the rental payment, so that's a requirement that with our incentives, that anybody at 80% and below who's paying rent, that they submit that to the credit bureau or whatever?
Yes, I love that. Good catch, Paul. That is a wonderful addition. It's of course a double-edged sword. If the payment history is bad, it can be harmful, but that's no reason to limit a resource for somebody who's able to make the payment consistently. Good catch, Paul. Man, that's awesome.
Thanks. I love a policy and procedure. It makes our life easier, but I'll think about that. And if we bring a change forward, of course, that would come through this committee, because I don't know what that means. If, is it a burdensome report or something like that? So sorry about that, Barry. I just wanted to think out loud with that policy. And the eviction moratorium, I just want to make sure, the COVID updates, the CDBG CV updates that we have, have a lot of resources for folks if they are struggling with rental assistance. So just that reminder about the eviction moratorium. And if I understand correctly, the last time I checked in with Buncombe County, they had like $7 million. That was about a month ago for rental assistance that was still available, if not more. So there is money on the table for rental assistance if that eviction moratorium. We'll look at the eviction rates if they really jump up in the next couple of weeks, but I just wanted to bring that to the attention.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul. Next item on the list is projects to HCD. It sounds like there's some discussion with boards and commission, or it sounds like when I've spoken with some of the HCD members, and it doesn't sound like there's much resistance. So maybe I'll try to introduce a conversation with Kathy Ball this month about that. But thanks for just sharing that bit with me. Nod to the community. So we're just so funny and fun and community development that we want to get out into the community once a month. So myself and Laura Neer, who's on our team, are going to move our offices to the community once a month. September 14th, we'll be at the Eddington Center. And basically, we're not there to talk. We're there to listen and be available to community members about resources, what we do, what we should do, what we can't do. So we're going to start doing that once a month, neighborhood of the day. So nod to the community, and starting on September 14th, depending on the world, of course, with COVID, but we're still kind of considering if we can get there and socially distance, but we're just trying to get out into the community about some of the work we do and maybe get some great ideas from the community about what we could do. So I just wanted to share that with the group. Okay. How is that going to be? Like, I'm just thinking if we wanted to share that resource, is that there'll be like something on the community development webpage, or? Yeah, we're probably going to send out a CD listserv email to blast next week after Labor Day to let everybody know that we're out in the community. Okay, cool. Depending again on this COVID-y thing to figure this out. This COVID-y thing, yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks. I'm just going to skip. I'm going to come back, but we have 13 minutes left. But I'm just going to skip real quick to this in the partner event with Lotstar. I know, so I've met with Matt. He's putting together kind of like a panel discussion. I think Margie's going to be part of it. I think I'm going to be part of it. And I think I'm going to circle back with him. I think he was still shooting for October, and he talked about, trying to find, brewery or event host place for that. But I think again, with the COVID, everyone's still a little shy about setting up public meetings where people gather unless there's outdoor space. So, but I'll circle back with him, and I'll see if that's still on. I know he was still shooting. He was wanting to do it in October still. But I think there's mixed comfort with that. So we'll circle back with that. This developer, like this is in the informal discussion developer community forum listening session early October. I think I duplicated that with the Lotstar thing. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yep. That's with the Lotstar thing. New website. So yep. It's basically, if anyone wants to go to the community website, we're basically done. I shared on the biggest page is what I shared in the chat earlier, that we put all the resources and tools in one place. It's a much more user-friendly website with good links and access to information and resources. We just have to finish the HUD tabs, but in all your free time, check out the community development website and check it out. Okay. Cool. It's been very helpful for developers to send them there first before they meet with us. So that's been really helpful to the team. Good. In the policies or any of those active discussion, anything fresh in that we should be discussed, or this is just kind of the future? No, not right now. Just when maybe at some point it would be great to re-engage. I'm going to keep them on there if you're okay, Barry, because I think that there's some value there. But right now, no. Okay. Yeah, there has been innovations. I know we had that one the 3D printed folks that are a couple of years out of Chapel Hill or Durham or something. But I have read that there's the group in Austin has kind of stepped up a little bit, and I think they've got their first house some of their first communities under construction. They're not necessarily affordable, some of their projects, but they found, and it looks like it's been kind of a mix. The article I just read one this week about I think it's like Vulcan, I think it's called, and they're 3D printing the lower levels, and then they're stick framing traditional constructing the upper levels. So it's kind of a hybrid mix, but it's, very, very interesting. And I like the idea of the innovation. So we'll try to, we're obviously catching up for 2 months, but we will try to keep that, that item on and see what else we can share. So circling back to, the scaled affordable housing rebate, I think, it seems like it comes up more and more. I guess it's what are we thinking? I guess for our committee, how do we move this discussion forward more? What are some of the specifics? Like, do we want to should we look at it as far as like existing and it's more of a scale and it's more of a percentage, or do we want to look at discussion of something new and simplified, almost more like, I like almost like the Thrive program where it's, it's like a simple $2,400, we're not talking the incentive for short, for a low, a year or so commitment to have to be huge, but it's some kind of incentive on the front end for the first turn, which is how the city fee rebate program used to be based on first turn purchase price, and it didn't have any future restrictions in it. And it wasn't, and the first turn price was set low enough that it wasn't, it wasn't used a lot. I think, and Andy Habitat's definitely used it. Mountain Housing used it years back. I think I used it 3 times. So it wasn't an overused, and it wasn't something, that cost the city much money, because it was basically the city was stamping something affordable, which got a 50% rebate of development service fees, and then it allowed MSD and water to do rebates of theirs. And right now, MSD and water only will do rebates based on the city's qualification of the city has to stamp it, and the city doesn't have a way to stamp anything affordable unless it's got a 20-year commitment. So, I guess we can, we either, as a promoting affordable housing, how is this something, I guess the big question, is this something we want to discuss, or do we really want to remain focused on long-term affordability standards? Does anyone have any, we don't have much time. Does anyone have any quick thoughts on whether we should pursue this, or whether we should, just really focus on long-term affordability?
I'll chime in and kind of add to what I heard Margie say a little while ago. I think the long-term commitment is perfectly justified and acceptable in what we should go for on these large apartment complexes. But I think we should start thinking about, the small landlords. It's totally a different model for those folks who have just a couple of rental houses. And I don't know what the answer is, but I feel like we should continue the conversation to figure out how we could make it work with that scenario, because I think that's a great untapped market of opportunity. We just I think the dynamics for a individual who has 2 rental houses versus an apartment complex are significantly different, and we need to think through those challenges.
Okay.
I could add it to the agenda next month for new business, Barry. And the first thought that comes to my head is maybe a separate Luigi policy for, 2 to 10 units or 2 to 20 units, and then 21 and higher or something like that. Y'all could think about that and tell us, and we could try to come up with some thoughts, and then we could try to help put a policy together on what that looks like. So let us know. Yeah.
Does it have to be? I'm even just thinking on the, is there something that makes it even be 2 units? Because even like, what Margie brought up, the ADU is like if someone wanted to build an ADU or put an ADU on and rent it out for just a single unit, Luigi might be a complicated answer for that, but maybe a simple tool for that. I don't know. I'll do a little bit of research what other cities and municipalities are doing for individual landlord incentives. Maybe there's something we can model it after. I don't think there's anything in the city currently for that. Okay. Because the new fee rebate program that was adopted recently, I think still has the 20-year commitment. Okay. All right. Andy, do you have any, just as one do you have any thoughts on it? Just because, I know at least the old fee rebate program, you used it. Is there any thoughts of whether that was a good tool the way it was?
Well, the fee rebate program, particularly as a way to access the larger MSD and water rebates, was huge. It's been a real loss to not have a streamlined way to make that happen. I don't know. I was keeping my mouth shut because I feel like we went round and round and round for a couple of years on the fee rebate to get where we are. So not to rehash over all of that, but I think there is some real advantage to figuring out how we craft a set of incentives for small property owners, small developers to take advantage of the same kind of benefits that we're extending to larger developers. It really is, the bulk of our rental housing stock is scattered site, small unit, mom and pop landlords, and the tools are clunky for that kind of situation. So if there's things that we can do, I was a part of putting together an incentive program for that sort of mom and pop landlord, small unit landlord in another job around maintenance and repair grants and loans that were linked to certain affordability periods. So, and that was coming out of the same thinking of, that community had facade improvement grants and that sort of thing for other types of small business owners that weren't being extended to small business owners of, property owners, rental property managers. And that's a model that we could look at. Just with those grants and loans came, a certain period of affordability restrictions at certain levels. So,
okay.
I'll dig that up and share that if I can find it.
Thanks. Yeah. Let's just put it, move it up on. We'll have it as a prominent item on the agenda next month. We'll do a little bit of, maybe everyone do a little bit of homework for I'll do some policy searching for some of the municipalities I know, especially around ADU creation. I've seen some that incentivize that, and then we can see, where we can go from that. But yeah, I think it is valid. I think to your point, what you said, Andy, is the majority of rental property is actually owned by individual folks. And maybe if there's a way, and same thing what Kate was pointing out from Thrive, that all of their participating landlords are just individuals. So if we can give them a tool, and maybe not a complicated tool, and it doesn't have to be a giant tool, but just a little bit goes a long way. So, all right. Well, thank y'all. Do we have any public comment callers on the line?
No, I do not see any callers on the line at this time.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Councilwoman Mosley. We will, again, we have our task force for build this month. Connect will try to do it as well. We'll report back how that goes. And then if anyone wants to go visit Paul and some staff, they'll be at the Eddington Center on September 14th. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Good conversations as always. Take care.